Bounty Hunters. Life on the blockchain.
Oh yeah, ready to go. Welcome to Bounty Hunters. I'm here with Jack from Sherlock. How you doing, sir?
That is an awesome intro.
Fucking
That is
kick
an
ass.
awesome
It
intro.
pumps us up, man. We are pumped to talk about bugs.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Hey man, so I gotta say, for whatever reason, and we've never met before, I had you blocked on X, and I couldn't remember why. And then I unblocked you, and then I looked at some tweets, and I was like, "Oh shit, I think he just tweets a lot of shit, and maybe I just blocked you from back in the day. I had no idea, or he likes to stir up shit. I don't know."
You've had me blocked for years, and I don't know what I said, but there was something I want to say maybe 2021 is when I first noticed it. But yeah, I say a lot of crazy things on Twitter, so it's not surprising. I don't have that many people who block me though, so I did remember that you had blocked me.
That's. Did you get a notification? How'd you know? 2021. Fuck, DeFi
Yeah,
summertime. Yeah. Who the fuck
yeah.
knows?
I wish I knew. I'm not sure if we interacted directly on Twitter or maybe you were just saying, like, you just disagreed with something that I was saying. But
I don't
yeah, I
know.
remember looking you up and being like, oh, Riptide blocks me.
Well,
Interesting.
listen, water under the bridge. I'm going to reset our relationship here.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll say some things on this podcast too, and maybe you'll block me again
Hey,
after. So
maybe it
you
turns
never
out you're an
know.
asshole. I don't know. Maybe I am too. We'll see. Anyway, man, thanks for taking the time coming on. This is kind of a little different podcast because I don't know if you listen to any of my other ones, but obviously I get bounty hunters on here. We talk about finding bugs. You're, I don't know, maybe you run the Sherlock account. I don't know, but you guys reached out and said, "Hey, this would be a good idea." And I thought about it. And I thought it actually would be a really good idea because you run Sherlock, and that is one of the top kind of contests and bounty spots that hunters go to. And so to get your perspective on a lot of things, I think would be interesting to a lot of bug hunters that listen to this, and especially some of the comments we got in the Discord. And thanks for joining. But a lot of people, I guess, are very interested in some of the backroom, I don't want to say dealings and contests, but there's some stuff that's going on that if you could help clarify some things and put it out in the open, I think a lot of people would appreciate it.
Yeah, no, sounds great. Would love to. Yeah, honored to be on the podcast. I don't spend much time as a bug bounty hunter myself. I wish I had more time to do it actually and compete in contests. But yeah, that's one of the downsides of the job is you just don't have much time to do that kind of thing outside of the day job. But yeah, I've listened to some. I was just listening to NNEZ. Guy sounds like a legend. Just grinding out of Bangkok. Do you tell people where you're based, by the way?
I think everyone knows, but if they ask, usually I try to keep it about the guest. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just chilling
Okay.
low key in Europe, man.
In Europe, nice,
What about
nice.
you?
I was actually in Europe until about 2 months ago. I was in near Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and now I'm
Mm,
in New York.
okay, good stuff. And real quick, what's your background, man? I know nothing about you. You started this. Why? Why'd you start Sherlock?
Yeah, yeah, of course. My background is all over the place. I was like from childhood training to be a professional tennis player, so that was like on the docket for me for 10 or 15 years. Played at a really high level in university and college at Berkeley, but I had a lot of injuries, and so I kind of realized like, oh, this isn't going to work out for me. So I focused on more of the business and finance side of things. I really wanted to be a hedge fund manager. I thought that was a cool career path, so I did that for a few years and made it all the way to being in the top group at Citadel. And like a really great team, crushing it on the hedge fund side of things.
Is this in
Uh,
Chicago?
this was in San Francisco.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
one of the best financial institutions groups in the global equities section of Citadel sits in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys is a partner at Citadel, and so I was working for him, and it was cool, but it was so boring. I was just like analyzing these regional banks that don't do anything, and that was when I got red pilled on the financial system and like how broken it is, how uninnovative it is. So I left that to get into programming and like the startup world. So I was a self-taught programmer for like 2.5 years, doing all kinds of stuff, building iPhone apps in Swift, building websites in JavaScript, a bunch of Python projects, and then found crypto and DeFi. And I was like, oh my God, this is so clearly where I want to spend like my career, basically, is creating a better financial system, because I know how broken and kind of corrupt and just all these problems with the old financial system. And so that's what got me into DeFi. At that point, I knew programming enough to pick up Solidity, and just became obsessed with it. And so the problem that me and my co-founder got really excited about was, hey, if you want crypto and DeFi to be successful, you can't have like your mother putting her life savings into DeFi and then it getting hacked, you know? And so that's where we come to the security side of things. And we basically said, look, we don't like a lot of the security initiatives and teams going after this problem in like 2020. So we felt we should step in and try to kind of, hold up that pillar for the crypto ecosystem and try to make things safer. So that was my initial kind of introduction into the crypto security side of things.
Very cool. From fig to crypto, everyone's got their transition. That's interesting, man. Yeah, once you see the back rooms of banking, you just realize how retarded it is and how nothing
Yep.
works. Yeah, you get so many guys coming over. That's cool.
Yep.
So you said I'm going to build, and so at this point, what did you know you were going to focus on contests, like build some sort of contest platform? I think Code Arena is probably the first one that I ever heard of doing contests. Was that for you too?
Yeah, that's a great question. Code Arena was definitely the first. I guess so. This is kind of a longer answer, and I would love to hear, what was your, I don't know anything about you either. What was your kind of background before you got into the space?
Oh, I was always doing stuff on the technical side, and I did some military stuff, and then went over to Wall Street and was a banker over in Miami as well. So covered a few different groups. Fig was one of them briefly, but mostly transportation. And I saw the banking side inside out, and I was dabbling in Bitcoin since '09. I used to
Nice.
build computers, built a miner, blah blah blah,
Nice.
and didn't jump into ETH until much later. But then I saw the ecosystem. But then no, I didn't really go full bore until about COVID. I got laid off. The whole team got laid off, and I just went hardcore crypto. And I saw the bounties on ImmuneFi,
Yeah,
and I said, I want to do something where I can control what's going to happen to me instead of just relying on the market. And so I just, parlayed my JavaScript PHP knowledge into Solidity and just put head to the grindstone until I started finding bounties.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, the level of self-sufficiency as a bounty hunter is quite high, it seems like.
You have to. I mean, there's ups and downs. I think it's better now with GPT and stuff because you can be deep in a weird code base and not have a clue, and it could help explain it to you. Whereas that would take, maybe a week of research on your own to learn however some complicated system works. So, but yeah, it's very, you know, it's just you out there because you can't share your secrets or your tips.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer your question, but I also would love to hear, because there's such like a risk tolerance spectrum between doing traditional audits, doing contests, and then doing bug bounties. And if you're a bug bounty hunter, you're kind of at the extreme end of that risk spectrum in some ways. So, would love to kind of hear how you think about that. But I'll answer your question first about getting into audit contests and Sherlock's early days. So we started out. I don't know if Code Arena was around when we first started. Um,
What year did you kick off?
we kicked off early 2021, so they might have been just kicking off as well. But we didn't do audit contests until much later, so they were definitely first to it. We started out doing smart contract insurance.
Hmm.
And we kind of figured, okay, if we only kind of underwrite the very best audit firms, then this is going to go really well. We're going to have almost no payouts and whatnot. And then we quickly realized even the best audit firms back in 2021 were missing bugs left and right. I mean, we built a protocol, two protocols actually, for this smart contract insurance platform. And so we tried a bunch of different audits. We tried, early code arena. We tried some traditional audit firms, like top blue chip ones. And especially with the traditional audit firms, we had terrible experiences. Like everything you could imagine going wrong kind of went wrong for us. Like we paid a bunch of money. We waited many, many months. We had like this update audit we wanted to do that was a significant update to our protocol. And the traditional audit firm, who I won't name, they took off our original auditors, like two guys from that audit last minute. And they gave us a guy with 6 months of blockchain experience and a guy with 3 months of blockchain experience. And we were like, that's kind of weird. I guess these guys know, more than we do. So, we'll continue trusting them. We'll have them do this audit. We already paid them a long time ago. I don't even know if we could get our money back. And so we had them do this update audit for us, and they didn't find much. And then we put that code on chain. We put out a bug bounty on it, pretty large bug bounty. And the first day we put up the bug bounty, basically a bounty hunter, submitted something, dinged us, and we paid out like 3 times what we had paid this audit firm in auditing on like day one of the contracts being on a bug bounty platform. So that was a wake up call for us. And there's more to that story, but basically we kind of figured out, okay, we can't trust these traditional audit firms. We think the code arena model is cool. We had a lot of changes we wanted to make to the code arena model. And so we did that. We kind of launched it as a hybrid between traditional audits and code arena. We had the lead senior Watson designation to make sure that somebody really top was going to be dedicated to every single audit and be trying really hard. And so we launched with that as like, hey, let's just try to get really good at auditing so that our smart contract insurance can be cheap enough that protocols can afford it. So that's why we got into auditing and audit contests originally.
Okay. So now I remember the first time I heard of you was the incident with Euler. Can you tell us what happened there?
Yep. So Euler incident, super painful period in Sherlock's history, probably the most painful. To give the full picture there, this was before we had gotten into audit contests. We were doing auditing for Euler, and we had some really top guys. I think Chris Michel did one of the audits. We basically were doing the independent auditor model that Sherlock, now our Blackthorn brand, and kind of like Spearbit. We were running that model in like late 2021, early 2022. Actually, before Spearbit was even doing it on their side. And so we had all these really top guys. I would have to remember exactly who audited Euler, but Chris Michel, some of these guys, I think Watchpug looked at it as well. And then the Euler had a small update, EIP 14 or something, that they wanted to, like Euler improvement proposal 14. And so we kind of scoped it for them. And we said, yeah, this is pretty small, but we want to spend extra amount of time on it. So we kind of like doubled the scope of that audit. And Watchpug did the audit. And, nothing bad happened. That was in like May of 2022. And a lot of things happened between May of 2022 and Euler got hacked. Like 2 months afterwards, we switched entirely to audit contests because we felt that was a more secure model than putting a few independent auditors together. We can talk about that. And so the Euler exploit happened in, I believe it was March of 2023. So it was about 9 months where that code was live on chain. We had $1 million bug bounty, and Sherlock paid for the entire bug bounty because through our insurance protocol, we paid for people's bug bounties. So we paid for Euler's $1 million bug bounty for 9 months on chain after Watchpug had done that audit. Not a single bounty hunter found this exploit, which was this donate to reserves function where you could kind of mess up the you could change the way that somebody who had deposited, you could change their position essentially by donating extra to it. And this is how you can do the exploit. And so nobody found that. And, they got exploited in March of 2023. And yeah, was one of the worst periods in Sherlock's history for sure. Obviously, one of the worst periods in Euler's history as well.
Do you remember their TVL at that time? Wasn't it about 200 mil, I think?
Yep. Yep. About 200 million.
And I think their bounty was a half a mil. What do you think about that? Like, why didn't this dude just say, "Hey, I'm going to report this"? Do you think it's, and this is just the overarching theme of we still don't know what the fuck to do, how to properly incentivize would be black hats with this model. But I mean, do you think he just thought, "Hey, I can get away with it. I could pocket 200 mil. 500K is not enough"? Do you think if the bounty was 5 mil, he would have done the same?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the bounty was $1 million, which maybe not that big of a difference, but it was one of the biggest bounties of the time, especially when we put it up in 2022. It was like, I don't know, top 10 or top 20. Um, and obviously 200 million, you're looking at that, you're like, okay, that's 0.5% of the TVL. By some, we can talk about what you think about this, but by some bounty hunter metrics, 10% of TVL is kind of standard. Although once you get to big numbers, that becomes, no protocol is offering 10% of TVL,
Mm-hmm.
at least before a hack. Um, so yeah, I really don't know. I mean, there's certain parts of that situation that I probably shouldn't get too deep into in terms of like the hacker and kind of what their situation was. But it's unfortunate. I've seen it a couple times too, uh, behind the scenes in different areas where you kind of wonder like, why did you why did you hack this? For especially for smaller amounts where there's a bug bounty, you can make a good amount of money, but they decide to hack it anyways. And it's very strange to understand that decision. And I think that's changing a little bit with people getting prosecuted more now. Like I think the Mango Markets guy and things like that. Like hackers are kind of not thinking that they can get away with it as much anymore. But back 2 years ago, people would just kind of not think through hacking very much. It seemed like, and would just kind of go for it.
Yeah, I remember the Euler hacker. I think he had to look up how to deploy a smart contract. Like he really didn't have the best kind of knowledge of the whole process. Guys like that will get caught, but I think the human mindset, it's men, and men want to flex as well. So if they don't get caught, they're going to talk about it to someone. Probably get caught later, unless you do everything right. But I hope it's changing. It is a different landscape now, but um, a problem we're still working to solve, I would say.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy. I mean, you've got guys like what's his name, Andine, who's still like just a Canadian dude who's been on the run for how old? He's like 19-year-old Canadian guy. Has been on the run for 2.5 years, hiding from world authorities.
which hack was this?
This was indexed finance,
But
17
indexed,
million.
yeah. But he came out, didn't he? Say no code is law, and didn't they go through the courts?
Um, I'd have to check on that. I know. I thought it was this Andine guy from Canada, and then he is thought to have done a second hack um, more recently, but yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
know.
know.
My or he was called to court, but he didn't show up, and now he's been on the run ever since. That was my understanding, but
Okay, on the run of the blockchain. I love it, man. This space is crazy. Well, what
it is
you're
crazy.
doing, what you're doing is great, man. Like Sherlock, that's great. Let me ask you something, like because I'd say the top names, right, for bounty hunting would be ImmuneFi, Cantina. Uh, I honestly haven't looked at your what bounties are offered, but the next name that comes to mind is Hack and Proof, and probably you guys as well. Um, how do you kind of compete in this space with the other guys? Like, what are you offering that's so different? Because you can offer a project, hey, we'll take X amount for fees, but hey, on top of that, come with us because all the best bounty hunters are coming here. Which I don't know how you'd come up with that metric if you do say that, because from a bounty hunter perspective, we'll just look at projects and then see where the bounty's hosted sometimes. Like say I find something and
Interesting.
then I just say, well, do they have a bounty? I don't care where it's hosted. It doesn't matter to me. And then I'll
Right.
go, hopefully there's a bounty hosted somewhere. That'd be great. And it's not HackerOne or one of these like Web2 type platforms, because then I know that the dollar amount's going to be shit.
Right.
But that's how I kind of look at it at the space. Some people love going on ImmuneFi, Cantina, probably Sherlock, and just look at the bounties and then look at the assets and go that way. I was just curious, like how you target your clients. Like, how do you say, hey, we're better than the competitors. Here's why you should hunt with us.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. And I think if we couldn't find differentiation in bug bounties, we wouldn't have gotten into the business at all. Um, and now, we just announced yesterday we have the biggest bug bounty ever in Web 2 or Web 3, the $16 million one with usual money. And so there are some unique things that we're doing that I think are setting us apart, even though frankly we're newer on the bug bounty side. Like on the contest side, we were very early to that. We were right after Code Arena. On the bug bounty side, it was always something we wanted to get into because we had we had run bug bounty programs for both of the protocols we built. So, my co-founder's Solidity guy since 2018, and we built two protocols, and we had that bug bounty, which I was telling you about earlier, which we had some payouts, or at least one payout from. Um, and so we kind of knew from the project's perspective all of the pain points. And there were some pretty significant ones. Like for us, getting the bounty set up was difficult. For a lot of our clients, we've tried to help them set up bounties so that we can get the insurance on them and things like that. And it takes weeks sometimes with other bug bounty platforms just to get the bounty set up. And then one thing we experienced really strongly was at first we had criticals, highs, mediums, I think maybe lows listed on our bug bounty platform, and we just got so much spam and so much irrelevant stuff that we got rid of everything except for criticals. And even when we kept a criticals only bug bounty on this other bug bounty platform, which I won't mention, we got so much spam. I mean, we
And
haven't.
this is before LLMs.
This is before
Oh my god.
LLMs. Um, I mean, we haven't updated those smart contracts in probably 2.5, 3 years. And we still, a week or so ago, I got another, critical notification, critical vulnerability notification, fee on transfer, like some BS. But your heart drops every time because you're like, oh my God, someone found a critical.
Right.
So it's like pretty annoying from a project's perspective. And then you have to put whoever your Solidity developers are, or maybe you have a security guy, like they can spend hours looking into, especially these LLM ones. I mean, we've seen some where
Mm-hmm.
I think we spent like a day and a half with one of our clients trying to figure out if this bug was real or not. And then it turned out like, oh, they misunderstood the like VM.warp foundry function, like cheat code. And you couldn't use it in this realistic, it was unrealistic way of using that. In this really massive exploit that took a lot of hours to figure out. So the spam thing is actually a big problem for protocol teams because that team, they didn't develop anything for 2 days because they were looking into this one spam submission.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took some of those pain points and we basically got rid of all of them. So our bug bounty platform is actually really different from those other ones that you mentioned. We're the only ones who require a $250 deposit from bug bounty hunters.
I love that. That's a great idea. I've been saying that. I didn't know you do it. Great idea.
That's good. I was going to ask your thoughts on that because I thought you might hate it, but
No, because the
that's good to
spam thing,
hear.
I've been on your side too, helping a project go through submissions for a contest one time, and the amount of spam, and this is pre LLM, and it was
Right.
fucking ridiculous the amount of spam that came through. Now, I I mean, you need AI to deal with AI. It's just too much shit. Yeah, people need to have skin in the game.
Right. Right. And even you can't trust the triagers either on some of the other platforms, unfortunately. So even the ones where the triager says, yeah, this doesn't seem valid, like most teams still look through all of those anyways. So like the spam filtering isn't really helping you that much. Um, So we have that $250 deposit, and the way it plays out, this is going to be more for a protocol team than maybe relevant for bug bounty hunters, but you can only use our bug bounty platform if you've done an audit or a contest with us. Because if you've done that, then we know everything about your code base, we know the scope, we know the rules. Like we build teams bug bounty programs before they even ask us for it,
Mm.
because we just have it already. Like we have all the information, so we just put it together and then say, hey, do you want to have a bug bounty program? Here you go, it's already built. So that saves them weeks and saves them a lot of time trying to migrate stuff to a different platform. And then the reason we only allow teams that have done audits or contests with us on our bug bounty program is because the triagers then, which I don't like the term triage, but the people who review the submissions are the top auditors from your audit or from your contest. And so this is maybe more relevant for the bug bounty hunting side. Sure, you have to pay $250 as a deposit. You get it back if you're correct about the submission, by the way. And what you get, instead of like this triage process or whatever, kind of a black hole for a week when you submit it, you immediately get a security researcher who knows this protocol better than anyone else telling you if the bug is real or not.
Mm-hmm.
And this is great for the protocol team as well, obviously. And we use that $250 to pay that person to review the bug. Um,
Now I wonder
so
if, and that's, I like that idea. Now I wonder if the idea where I mean, you're selectively taking on protocols where you've worked with them in the past. Do you think this helps protocol ghosting, which is a shitty thing that happens to bug hunters where a protocol gets listed, and this has happened on ImmuneFi a few times with a few different bug hunters, and they'll
yeah,
list it, and then people submit bugs, they close it, they change the code, whatever, they do whatever they can to fix all the bugs, they get kicked off, and they got a free audit or a free bounty hunt.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a terrible problem. Really hard one to fix. Like Immunify's come out with the vaults thing where it's like, okay, some protocol teams have some money. They show you that they have the money at least. And there are even programmatic ways. We actually have a flow where you can programmatically have it pay out if you're using our coverage, so that the bounty hunter only trusts Sherlock and trusts our on-chain claims mechanism, which we can go into later. But so we solve it that way. If the protocol team says, hey, we want to have a 200K bounty, but we don't want to pay out the 200K, we want Sherlock to pay it out, we're going to pay Sherlock 10K a month for that privilege, then we actually decide on the payouts, which is a lot better than a random protocol team deciding on it from the bug bounty hunter's perspective, I would assume, because Sherlock has to continue playing this game, and our reputation has to continue, being good into the future on this. So we do try to do what's right, and we have those on-chain mechanisms as well. Um, and then I think what you're also getting at is just it's like the opposite of an adverse selection problem, where you're getting protocol teams that are willing to pay for security because they're already paying for Sherlock audits. Sherlock is not the cheapest auditor out there by any means. And so you're already getting this like selection of protocol teams that have demonstrated that they care about security and are willing to pay for it. So I think it does create a much better group of protocols.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's pretty good. I think everyone really just needs to think about human incentives with anything
Agreed.
that they do. Like, usually it's follow the money, but just think about what people want and how they can get it and what incentivizes people. And that usually should lead you to the right answer and how you implement your systems, or what human behavior will be doing in a certain situation. We had some questions from Discord. I saw White Hat Badge was asking something about your bounty data. Are you going to make it public?
Yeah, bounty data, may, maybe at some point. I think, does any bounty platform make their data public? I guess they do some monthly recaps. I've seen those.
Yeah. Well, say you're on
So
ImmuneFi, right? And you're looking on their bounties. And what I don't like is, you'll see a list of projects, and then some projects will say private for amount paid or amount submissions, whatever. I
right.
don't I don't like that. And I understand why they want to do it, but I don't like it at all, because it's like, be transparent about your security posture and your responsive. Everything should be out there. This is open source. This is a decentralized system, and we're supposed to be looking at your open source code and we want to know if it's worth our time to look at it. So, how many bugs have been submitted? How many have been paid out? All kinds of these details would help us a lot to kind of screen projects and just find the right targets to hunt. Because the last thing a hunter wants to do is just fucking waste his time on something that's, I mean, we waste our time all the time, but we at least want to be able to choose what we want to waste our time on, at least with some
Right.
sort of background.
Yeah. I think that's a really fair perspective. For Sherlock, I think we'll release some data once we have. We don't want it to be able to be reverse engineered. We don't have that many bounties still. I think we're getting close to like 20. Um, but for a long time, there's been a few, and the dollar amounts are specific, and so we don't want people to be able to reverse engineer things that the protocol teams don't want them to be able to reverse engineer. So we're going to be a little bit careful about that. I will say, in terms of data, we've only ever had one invalid submission in our history on the bug bounty platform side, which I think is interesting and kind of demonstrates that the $250 deposit makes people take it pretty seriously. Um,
Hmm.
and then in terms of showing the bounties that you've paid out, I agree with you on that. If I were a security researcher, I would 100% want that. It would make me feel much more comfortable hunting for that protocol. The problem is, from the protocol's perspective, who they answer to are investors and users, and investors and users have this completely unrealistic expectation of, okay, this team has really good developers. They're not going to have any findings in their audit. They're not going to pay out any bug bounties, and they're definitely not going to get hacked. And this is like the base case expectation from a lot of users and investors. So protocol teams feel if they show, hey, we paid out a critical bounty, they feel that it makes them look weaker and it reduces trust from their users and investors.
Yeah. No, I get it. I kind of miss the days when it was just devs, like little devs teams doing everything, and there was no investors. And you find a
Yeah.
bug, you just talk to the devs, and fuck, it just feels like everything's so professionalized now in this space. Even though it's still very young, it's just like, these are the realities of the current situation, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. It's growing up for better or worse. Like KYC is probably a discussion we could have around bounty. Your thoughts on that. But that's definitely becoming a bigger deal as you're trying to onboard BlackRock into the space and things like that.
I think it's a waste of time. I think it's just a facade. We all know it can be gamed. Go open up a Telegram channel and you can get your fake docs physical. You can get your fake virtual docs from AI. I mean, are you mandating KYC on your bounties?
Let me think. I don't think we do actually. We let the protocol team decide, and I know some have decided not to do it. We don't mandate KYC on our audit contests either. We let the protocol team decide if they want it or not. Early on, Sherlock and Code Arena, neither one had KYC, and it was kind of like, look, this is game theory. There's going to be hundreds of people looking at this, so you're going to get security through incentives and through the mass of people who are all trying to find the same bugs. But we've definitely seen a trend towards, hey, we need to be, buttoned up here. We need to be responsible in air quotes,
Yeah, at
and
least say we're
have
buttoned up.
KYC in these things.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, have the appearance of being buttoned up. Yeah.
What about, so I'm just thinking about like self-dealing, like all the shit that goes wrong with this kind of permissionless anonymous ecosystem that we're in. With your contests, right? I mean, I just saw a bunch of complaints in the Discord about all all the problems that go on, and I didn't really do contests, so I wasn't aware of a lot of this. But then once people brought it up, I was like, well, yeah. I mean, just like people work at Coinbase and Binance front run token listings, and everyone's going to try to stay under the radar and do some shady shit every now and then because they're incentivized by money. So how do you deal
Yep.
with your guys? Is it a gentleman's handshake where you're like, hey man, don't 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 submit a finding and then judge it from your Anon account, like stealing submissions, front running. How do you handle these issues on your platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll take small issue with the complaints. We definitely have complaints in our Discord about how we can improve things and why someone didn't get a certain payout in a certain contest. But I think in terms of like game ability or real unfairness, we haven't had those situations that maybe have happened on other contest platforms where someone has done some self dealing or there's been, massive kind of duplication. I'll tell you something like we try to solve everything through pure game theory and incentives because that's like the best way to do it if you can. Having to slap people on the wrist to do bad things after they do them is just not an effective
Mm-hmm.
way of running a platform because there's an unlimited supply of people who are just going to try that stuff. So I think Sherlock's been pretty clean. Like we've seen very few instances where maybe somebody has submitted their finding twice. So I'll just give you some background on one way to game the system, which maybe I shouldn't talk about publicly,
Tell
but
us
I think
all
enough
the
people
ways.
know about. Yeah, I'll tell you. I can go through a few different ways. One of the most obvious ways is create multiple accounts. Okay, you have to have another Discord, another GitHub, another whatever to get around this. But you can create multiple accounts. Maybe your sister makes an account and you just use that account as your second one, and so you can submit findings through multiple accounts. And this is a way of earning extra money because of the Sybil formula that Sherlock and some other audit contest platforms use. But here's the thing, we can fix that. It would just make it a lot more punitive for any duplicated findings. So it would kind of hurt the system a little bit, but we can fix that to the point where there's no incentive to do it. The reason we don't is because even today, it's not a strong incentive because the way that you make money if you duplicate your own finding is if there's a lot of findings. If there's like 20, if there's, sorry, not a lot of findings, a lot of duplicates. If there's 20 duplicates, so you're in an audit contest, you find this vulnerability and 20 other people find it too and submit it in this contest. In this case, you can make like $2 extra or maybe like $5 extra by trying to Sybil it and creating multiple accounts and submitting it through multiple accounts. But the problem is, if it happens that you are the only person to find that critical vulnerability and then you Sybil yourself, you actually lose, like, in some cases, $3,000 or $1,000. And so it's kind of like picking up pennies in front of a bulldozer, if you're familiar with that term, where, yes, you can make $10 or $2 here and there by doing this. But as soon as you do it on a finding where there weren't a bunch of duplicates, you've just lost yourself like $1,000. So everything else you were making, like, it gets blown away by that. Um, and we'd have to get a little bit into the technicals of like the algorithm and why it works that way. But that's the reason why we've seen maybe a sign here or there that somebody did a duplicate, Sybiled their finding, but it doesn't have a big impact on people's rewards. And the biggest impact it will have, if it does have one, is on that person. And they're going to lose like $1,000 for doing it because of how the formula works. So we
But how
don't
do you
lose
how
sleep
do you
over
know
it.
as a hunter if your finding was stolen? Like if you submit a critical and whatever, one other guy submits a similar one, how do you know that wasn't an insider?
Okay, that's a great question. So that's a different topic. So the one before was you Sybil yourself, right? Like you create 3 accounts and you submit this finding through all 3 of your accounts.
Hmm.
The one you're talking about is a different situation where you submit the finding and then it gets leaked somehow. The team sees it, or maybe the Sherlock, like the protocol team sees it, maybe the Sherlock team sees it, and then someone else makes an account and submits it because they're like, wow, I'm going to earn $2,000 from this. Um, this one is really interesting because when Sherlock, I'll tell you in story form how we've dealt with this. Sherlock started out saying, look, you can submit findings during the contest and we're going to share them with the team as soon as they're submitted. This creates a vulnerability where if the team is not honest, they can create an account and they can submit it in the contest and they can like get back some of what they paid in the contest. Or if it's a rogue guy, they can just make some money on the side and no one knows about it. And so when it was just Sherlock and Code Arena, we realized this. We're like, oh, we're dumb. We didn't realize this was an issue. And so we changed it to where the team can only see all the findings at the very end. And even the Sherlock team, I think maybe there were two people who could potentially even go and try to find those findings during the contest and submit them. So it was very like sectioned off. And Sherlock and Code Arena both agreed. It was kind of a gentleman's agreement of like, this is good for security researchers. Let's not show the findings until after the contest is over. Where this changed was when other people got into the audit contest space, like Cantina and Immunify and some others. And we had built a really great reputation for audit contests over that year and a half. They were really growing. Reputation of audit contests was really going up. And so it was a little bit unfortunate in my view that some of these other players came in and they kind of said, oh, audit contests have a great reputation. Let's do like a watered down version of the audit contest and let's compromise in a bunch of areas and let's show the team the findings during the contest. Let's even show them to a judge or our triaging team during the contest. There's a bunch of other things too, like conditional reward pots. What else? But
Why do you think they
essentially,
did that? Why do you think they released it early? Is that just so, hey, 2 days later after the contest ends, look, we're already done because we've been working the whole time? Like, what's the justification?
yeah, they did that because customers love it. If customers can see a critical vulnerability, at the beginning of their 2-week contest, they can start fixing it and they can be ready to launch by the end of the contest.
Mm.
So these
But
guys,
bounty hunters don't like it.
it's bad for security researchers, bounty hunters, great for the protocol team. And this is like the story of audit contests and probably bug bounty platforms as well, is balancing the needs and wants of those two parties.
What do you think about? I think ImmuneFi, they launched their attackathons, which seems like a contest type thing. Have you looked into that at all as far as your competition?
Yeah. So Immunify Hackathons, they're basically audit contests with some like educational material ahead of it, so that people can get up to speed on the code base before the audit contest starts. But the issue I take, obviously I'm running one of these platforms, so these are our competitors. What we've seen is it's become less of audit contests and more of bug bounty contests. And what I mean by that is in an audit contest, we say, look, there's going to be $100,000 that's going to get paid out to people who find stuff. And so if you're a bounty hunter or a researcher, you're like, okay, cool. If I do a good job, I am going to get some of that $100,000. I feel comfortable spending the next week or 2 weeks of my time on this. Bug bounty contests are, if there is a high or if there is a critical, then we will pay out $100,000 or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. And these are very different from a security researcher's perspective, as you can imagine, because now it's like, okay, even if I absolutely crush it for 2 weeks, there might not be a high or critical in this code base. And so I get paid nothing. And so what we've seen is, let's say, for example, Dead Roses just put his yield or protocol on Sherlock for an audit contest. He got 600 participants or 601. It's like, I think it's a record. It's
Jesus.
definitely a record for Sherlock. 600 security researchers looking at this. We've seen blue chip protocols work with some of these other audit contest providers and put up larger dollar amounts, but it's a bug bounty contest where there's no guaranteed payout. And they got like 25 participants. So there's a huge difference between 600 and 25, as you can tell. So we're starting to see that play out a little bit more, where the researchers are actually voting with their feet and saying, we don't like these types of contests where there's these huge variable pots, which that's not a bad thing on its own. But if there's no fixed rewards, that's a bad thing for researchers.
I agree. And so if you could share, because I know Dead Rose is going to listen and the Bulgarian Mafia is going to listen, how many criticals were found in his audit?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't actually know that information. I could probably look it up here, but I know they had
We'll find out
750.
eventually.
Yeah, they had 750 submissions, which is a lot of submissions, but with 600 people participating, it's actually on average only one submission per person. So if there was, just one kind of obvious vulnerability, medium severity vulnerability in there, it could have been duplicated 600 times, which
Well, and
our
you say
team deals with that.
600,
But
600 blue chip security researchers. I don't think there are 600 in total blue chip security researchers, but like how do you see that they're quality guys? Just they have a record at Sherlock for finding bugs?
oh, sorry. Yeah, if I said 600 blue chip, so definitely some of, we don't know who those 600 are. They're just people who want to be security researchers who spent time looking at this code base. Some of them definitely are blue chip security researchers. Like it was either Simal, I think it was Simal who was looking at that and got first place in it. One of the best guys in the world in auditing right now from a quantitative perspective in contests. And then there's probably people who are just learning Solidity or just learning security and coming in out of that 600 too.
Yeah. It's interesting from a project's standpoint. It depends how they operate, but for them, the optics are identical, whether they put up a contest and two people show up or 500, because they could put it on their site. They could show, hey, look, we had a contest. And most people, investors, whatever, won't do the diligence is, hey, look, it's been audited. Okay, great. It's had a contest. Great. But when you look, as you know, the real deal about security, if you had 10 people show up versus 600, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, yeah. And it's much easier to say, hey, this is $1 million contest if it's only $1 million contest if a critical gets found. It's very
Mhm.
difficult to say, yeah, this is $1 million contest where we're paying out $1 million no matter what happens. So
Yeah,
we're
I
definitely
like that,
seeing,
man. I don't like the conditional pots. I like what you're saying. Like, hey, listen, our budget's $1 million. Pick the right platform to put it on. So if one guy finds the fucking low, then whatever. We said we're spending $1 million and that's it.
yep, yep. And you know, teams hate it if they spend $1 million and then there's one low only. They're like, wow, this was a huge waste of money, even though they probably got like 1,000 person weeks of auditing done, in that 2 weeks. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. All right. Let me put another one out there. So say you're at Sherlock and you're a Watson, right? And you say, hey, I'm gonna be sneaky. I'm gonna go submit a finding, and then I know I'm the judge, right? So I'm gonna judge. Is the Watson the judge? I'm sorry, the terminology.
yeah, it's a great question. So the way it works in Sherlock, we have an open. So we have people in the contest, and some of them are dedicated, like the lead senior Watson is dedicated. And then there's a separate person who is the lead judge. So the lead senior
Okay.
Watson is never the lead judge. We don't
Can the judge submit
maybe
his own findings through another Anon account, or are there two judges that have to review each finding?
so the judge could submit findings through an anon account. So that is an attack vector that is possible. And the way Sherlock's judging works, we have the most like intricate judging. We have an entire community judging period where we actually want the people who participated in the contest to judge their own submissions. So I know, someone might say, oh, it's bad if, a security researcher in the audit contest judges their own submission. But we have an entire application we built for judging with these crazy, the rules of it are a black box. You can't see them, but we have ways of knowing like, okay, this researcher is judging their own submission here, or this researcher is very inaccurate at judging their own submission, or whatever it is. So we have a lot of ways of dealing with that. We think it's a net positive if the person who submits the finding judges it during our community judging period, because they just add extra context. They give us more reasoning for why they think their submission is valid, and we can have a discussion or not about why they think it's valid, and get to the bottom of it. So it's actually a very open system, and every single judge has like a signal score. So at the end of the day, the final arbiter of things is the Sherlock judge. His name is Wang. He's absolutely incredible. It's not easy to find somebody who can do that role and do it well. And I think he's gotten extremely good reviews. We've had a few different people be Sherlock judges, and Wang is incredible at it. And so if a lead judge were to submit their own finding in the contest, a lot of people would call it out in the community judging and say, hey, this is valid or not. So the lead judge wouldn't get the final say, but the lead judge would be able to have input, and they have more weight on their input. But if enough people say, hey, the lead judge is wrong about this finding, then Wang, the Sherlock judge, comes in and works with the protocol team if necessary, talks to the people who are on both sides of the issue and gets to the bottom of it. So the idea of somebody in the contest or the lead judge being in the contest or some conflict there, at the end of the process, it will likely get filtered out and caught, and then their signal score in the judging app will go down, and then they will earn less money for judging in the future. They will get less weight. Their decisions will be weighted less by our black box algorithm in the future. So there's probably some ways here and there on the outsides or on the like edges to game the judging system in small ways, but in terms of big things, you'd have to get it past the Sherlock judge who's talking to all parties, talking to the protocol team, and that's going to be difficult.
Shout out to Big Wang. That's cool.
Big Wang.
Big Wang,
Yeah,
my man.
crushes it.
Let me ask you this. So, oh fuck, where was I going with my point, man? I had a great one until I talked about Big Wang. What do you think, like, weaknesses in Sherlock's model? Where are you guys looking to improve to kind of attract more bounty hunters? Because I'm not trying to shill Sherlock. You've taught me a lot about your platform, which sounds cool, man. Like I had some reservations, but what you've told me, how you're trying to kind of use game theory and have people operate off incentives, and you have a bond that people need to post, and you're focused just on high severity bugs. To me, that's all good, as long as the projects are good actors, which you say you vet them, you kind of know the parties. All those are good signs, man. Where do you guys think you could improve? Like what challenges you facing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we have great participation on the audit contest side. I think we need to do more, even more to incentivize top participation, like, you and White Hat Mage or Madge, still learning about Sherlock, maybe not spending a ton of time there yet. And I think the participation on the bug bounty side, we need to improve. It's difficult because Sherlock is like hardcore mode for bug bounties. If you're trying to get into the space, the bug bounty space, submitting a bunch of mediums and lows and things like that, great way to get into it. You can't do that on Sherlock. Like, you got to pay $250. There's only criticals in a lot of the bug bounties. These are all highly audited code bases. Like, they've all been through Sherlock audits, if not, 2 or 3 other audits from other firms. So it's really hardcore mode in terms of bug bounty platform. And so I think that, hurts participation a little bit. But it does, it's trade-offs. Like, you just get way less spam, and hopefully we get a higher signal of top security researchers spending more time here.
And you have your own in-house top guys, right? What are their titles?
So yeah, we have some guys through Blackthorn, who
that's
are
right,
exclusive to Sherlock. A lot of the guys who have been top in the audit contests. I think in total, Blackthorn members have won 125 audit contests. So the top of the top.
And so if you're a client and you say, hey, I want this Blackthorn guy on my audit, and then is there any case where he just kind of he gets paid to show up, probably a minimum, and then maybe incentivized on top of that? Have you had cases where maybe you had a couple of them on one project, and then one of the guys just kind of phones it in and just hey, I'm just going to take my 10 grand, whatever, for showing up and not really do much? Or is he disincentivized to do that because he's got a rep score or something like that?
This is a great question. This is a question that I've been thinking about for 4 years, and why we got into audit contests in the first place. Because you can say this about any traditional style audit, whether it's people through Blackthorn or Sherlock, or through any traditional auditor where they're full-time employees. What if they just decide to play StarCraft for one of the weeks? How are you ever going to know that? What if they don't show up at all, really, and the other three guys on the audit carry them? This, in my view, is one of the biggest vulnerabilities in traditional audits. And this is why Sherlock, for 2 years, we didn't offer traditional audits, because we saw this problem. We were like, man, I don't know. This seems kind of sketchy. And so I think it is a problem. We think a lot internally about how can we make these things more competitive. It's always a question of, does the collaboration of these 3 or 4 people, does that outweigh the competitive aspect? If we said, look, it's PvP, 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1 of these 4 people, like, what would get the better outcome? And we do see, it's tough because we do see collaboration being super valuable in a lot of audits. Like, we see the discussions now, we see people riffing off of each other and kind of finding things and going down rabbit holes and making each other more efficient, looking in different areas for each other. So there is, like, collaborative done well is very, very powerful. The problem is you can't always know that everyone is trying hard in a collaborative audit. And so that's why I think audit contests are super powerful. And that's why, like, I know Guardian, I think, has like a 2v2 model. We've thought a lot about kind of going in that direction. So you're talking about a very open vulnerability in audits that, in my opinion, has been open for the last 4 years, and every audit firm is kind of susceptible to it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this was the end of the podcast because we had connection issues, or rather, I had them down in my podcast basement. Anyway, this was the first time I heard about Sherlock. I thought he had some really good points. I'm going to check it out. I think the coolest part is having a bond and putting that up, because you're putting your money where your mouth is. It helps with the spam, and bounty hunter's going to think twice if they put up $250 in hard USDC cold cash. So anyway, if there's more demand for this kind of stuff, maybe I'll get the big bosses of the other platforms on. I think it's kind of cool just hearing from their end and seeing how we're kind of all working together, doing the same things, and trying to secure the blockchain while making millions of dollars and staying jacked and ripped. Anyway, next time, see you on the blockchain.